Today's lesson is on finding the percent of a number. First, we need to know how to read a percent. This says 4%. However, 4% means 4 per 100. 4 over 100. 4 per 100 can be written as a fraction like this. 83%. 83 per 100, or 83 hundredths. 83 per 100. So if we look at a percentage, we can think of it as a fraction over 100. We can take a fraction and change it to a decimal by dividing by 100. Fractions are division problems, and we read them from top to bottom. 74 divided by 100. When we divide by 100, the number gets smaller by 2 place values. When we divide, a number gets smaller. So 100 has 2 zeros. That's how I can remember that it's getting smaller by 2 place values. So we'll take our decimal point and move it back 2 places, or 2 place values. Since we divide by 100, we move the decimal point back 2 places. When we move it back 2 places, we get 0.74. So 74 100ths is 0.74. If we go from a percent to a fraction, and then we go to a decimal. So we go from percent, 23% to 23 100ths. We're dividing by 100, we move it back 2 places, and we have 0.23. 7%. For 7%, we have 7 100ths. When we have 7, we're going to move it back 2 places. Notice we have a blank spot in front of or coming right after our decimal point, so we fill that in with a 0. So 7 100ths is written as 0.07, not 0.7, 0.07. So 0.07 is the correct decimal form for 7%. 145%. We have 145 over 100, which is 1 and 45 hundredths. In other words, we're going to move our decimal point back 2 places, and we get 1.45, or 1 and 45 hundredths. Again, when we divide by 100, we move our decimal point back 2 places. 0.8%. In this case, the decimal point again is going to move back 2 places. When we move our decimal point back 2 places, we have to add another 0 in front of the original 0, and we have 0.008. So 0.8%, we move our decimal point back 2 places, and we have 0.008, or 8 1,000ths. A percent equation can be translated. To solve percent equation problems, we translate the words to symbols and numbers. For the word what, we're going to write the variable x for the unknown. For the word is, we use the symbol equals. 2 plus 2 is 4, or 2 plus 2 equals 4. When we see the word is, we write an equal sign. We change percent numbers to decimals before we solve. And we're going to use, when we see the word of, we know we're going to multiply, and we'll use parentheses to do that. So let's look at an example. What is 32% of 85? So let's replace the word what with x. Is with equal. 32% as a decimal is 0.32 because it's 32 100ths, or 0.32. Of 85 means times 85. Next, we put those numbers in our calculator, and we get x equals 27.2. Here's another example. What is 7%? Remember 7%, move it back 2 places, and we get 0.07 of 52. So 0.07 times 52. We multiply and get 3.64. What is 300% of 12? Let's start with the word what. We put a variable. Is equals 300%. Move the decimal point back 2 places, and we get 3 times 12 of 12. Now we multiply. 3 times 12, and we get 36. So 300% of 12 is 36. In summary, percents are per hundred. 42% is 42 per 100, or 42 hundredths. The fraction is changed to a decimal using division. Because we are dividing by 100, we move the decimal point back 2 places. 42% equals 42 100ths, or 0.42. To To solve for percent of a number, we translate the words into a number sentence. Change the percent to a decimal before multiplying. What is 42% of 150? X equals 0.42 times 150. So when we see the word of, we're going to multiply. Always change percents to decimals. So X equals 63. If you need any help, let me know. I hope this was helpful.